Hey everybody, welcome to the PC Perspective Podcast. This is episode 326, being recorded on November the 12th, 2014. I'm Ryan Schraub.
I'm Jeremy Hellstrom.
I'm Josh Walrath.
And I'm Alan Molentano, who's not searching for something in his jacket.
God, where'd my shirt go?
I got fuzzies.
Off to such a great start.
Cat. I noticed I was covered in fuzzies.
So it's the podcast time. I don't know. It's been an interesting week. We've got some cool stuff to talk about. Right off the bat, I'm going to tell you about our mailing list, though.
Yep.
Well, I mean, actually, right off the bat, pcper.com/podcast is where we store our podcast. RSS feeds, back episodes, links to YouTube videos, all that you can get there. And then pcper.com/live is where we actually record the show most Wednesdays, almost every Wednesday, at 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific, live. So you can come and interact with us. We have chat rooms there. It's a hoot and a holler. It's really great. But if you are forgetful, maybe you're allergic to the idea of, we do, by the way, have this calendar link. I'll show that here too. Right here on our schedule, there's a link that says PC Perspective Live Google Calendar RSS. You click that, and if you use Google Calendar, I think, or any other calendar, it's just an RSS feed that you can put in there. It will remind you of when we're going live. But if you don't want to do that, you can fill out this little form here with your name and your email address. And all we do is send you an email when we're going to go live. Sometimes it's like 2 hours before. Sometimes it's like 25 minutes before. It depends on what I'm doing beforehand. But that's all we use it for, is for instances like that. Now, what's cool is that you apparently, if you are just now signing up for this list, you probably missed out on last night's live stream where we played Assassin's Creed Unity for, I don't know, 90 minutes, 2 hours, something like that. It was sponsored by NVIDIA. And as a result, we gave away some stuff, like some pretty awesome stuff. All we did was kind of talk about Unity. We showed off the game. We played through some of the story missions. Look at all the stuff we gave away. We gave away 5 copies of the game. We actually only gave away 5 SLI bridges. We've got 5 more to give
guess
away later.
what?
What's that?
I didn't get any stuff.
You didn't know. You don't. No. Not allowed. No stuff for you. 5 game keys, 5 SLI bridges, an Asus ROG Swift G-Sync monitor.
Sweet.
And
They have those?
NVIDIA does, apparently.
Oh.
And an Acer XB280 HK 28-inch 4K G-Sync monitor. We gave away 2 G-Sync monitors last night.
Yeah.
And all you had to do was watch me play Assassin's Creed Unity and listen to me and Ken talk for a little while.
That was pretty painful, so.
I didn't die that often.
You also didn't, do a whole lot.
I killed a bunch of guards.
I watched you
10.
jump around the church a lot for like a half an hour.
That was annoying.
That
He
was
slid
so
down that
fun.
thing like 10 times in a row. Yeah, that was...
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
But it was
it's fun.
Assassin's Creed, not Fireman's Creed.
Well, it's
true.
Hey, you do what you can do. And little sneak peek, it's not on the schedule yet. We will have more game streams coming up this month. Either for Assassin's Creed Unity, where we do some multiplayer, maybe Far Cry 4, maybe Dragon Age Inquisition. We're mixing it up. We don't know what's going to happen. It's crazy. But if you sign up for that mailing list at pcper.com/subscribe, you can find out all of the cool, awesome action that occurs. So, Josh, you watched me play Assassin's Creed Unity.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah.
And then my wife started beating me, and I had to leave because it was embarrassing.
Yeah, I can understand that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I locked the door so my wife can't get in and hit me while I play games.
You were watching it on your big screen in the living room, weren't you?
Nobody
No.
wants to watch that.
No.
So let's get into the hardware of the week, starting with the Intel Core M5Y70 review and performance testing Broadwell Y. So Broadwell Y, it's an architecture from Intel. It is 14 nanometer process.
We've been hearing about it for the past 25 years.
We've been hearing about it for a while. But they kind of officially, in August, they brought me up to Portland, and we were introduced to some of the technology team behind the process tech, and then some of the technology team behind the architecture and the core design.
Yep.
And basically talk about why these two things go hand in hand and what the Broadwell Y platform was.
Is that the one that introduced the effective, lower clock speeds
Correct.
and stuff, too?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So And then in September at IDF, they kind of gave the first little preview. They announced what the branding was. Core M was going to be the branding for this particular line of parts. And they kind of let us get a little preview, a handful of benchmarks, but it was all stuff that they were running. We could watch run, right? So this is the first time we actually had our hands on a system using the Core M5Y70, which is the top-end Broadwell-wide part. It is in the form of the Lenovo Yoga 3. Now, what's interesting about this, if we look at these specifications, the Core M5Y70 is a unique part in that it is not directly replacing any other Intel part.
Nope. It is not.
It has a TDP. The most important spec here is this, the one I've highlighted in yellow. The TDP is 4.5 watts. The TDP of the closest proximity, I guess I would say, processor is the Core i5-4200U. That's a Haswell ULT part. That is probably the most popular processor used in Ultrabooks. Like literally, if you look at any of Steve's Ultrabook reviews, they like all have identical performance because they're almost all using this or some derivative of it. Like the 4250U, very similar part, higher in graphics, right? But that is a 15 watt TDP. So we're talking about less than a third of the TDP.
So I guess the easy comparison there was those two laptops that we have here right now.
We have the Yoga 2 Pro and the Yoga 3 Pro.
Yoga 3 Pro
very
has
similar designs. One has the 4.5 watt, one has the 15 watt part. But there are other specification differences, right? The most important which are here on the clock speeds. Base frequency of 1.1 gigahertz on the new part, 1.6 on the old part. But they both have the same max turbo frequency. So the Core M5Y70 is going to be a slower part. Like you could kind of make that assumption right away by looking at the clock speeds. The maximum clock speed is the same, minimum clock speed is lower, or base clock speed is lower. Now keep in mind the Core M is using a new IPC, it's a new core microarchitecture. It has improved IPC, but we're talking about 5% or under differences there. It is a new graphics system as well. The new Core M part does actually technically have more GPU execution units, but as you'll see, they kind of run at lower frequencies. Now, all this comes into, like, you've got lower TDP, you've got significantly lower die size, you've got significantly lower package size, and the reason for that is that, like I said, this doesn't really replace any other part. Here's a little picture of a quarter sitting on the motherboard for the
motherboard is almost narrower than the quarter.
Correct.
Like the motherboard, not the CPU anymore.
Underneath you can kind of see the green outline there. That is the package for the Core M5Y70. The die in it is obviously smaller than that because there's also a PCH chip on there, not built on 14 nanometer. Right. So you get a pretty good idea. This picture here shows you the hardware comparison of the Yoga 2 and Yoga 3. Again, you can see this is the Yoga 2 on the bottom here, and where the hinge is, you can see the Yoga 3 up here. Notice that there's two fans cooling the Yoga 2. There's one tiny, tiny little fan over here in the corner cooling the Yoga 3. And like literally, this is the motherboard right here because this is your storage device here. You've got your wireless device here. And you can get an idea of kind of what the scale differences are. Also, the Yoga 3 is thinner and lighter, and that's kind of what this platform enables. So I don't want to talk too much about performance because it's kind of a one-sided story. If you look at, let's look at our SciSoft Sandra CPU arithmetic baseline CPU performance graph. What you see here is you've got the 4200 and the 4250, both Haswell parts, and you've got this Core M5Y70 up top Broadwell. It is slower than Haswell, but it is faster than Bay Trail. Right. Also, we have this AMD part in here. Keep in mind that AMD part is a 35 watt TDP processor. Multimedia performance. It is slower than Haswell. It is significantly faster than Bay Trail and significantly faster than the Kaveri mobile part, 35 watt part. Memory bandwidth is pretty high up there. Let me see. Let's go to Cinebench here. This is kind of the one that I think shows the most important things to think about. Here's single-threaded performance. The Core M5Y70 is basically tied with the 4200U, the Haswell part, in single-threaded performance. Right? It's also more than twice as fast as Bay Trail. And it's also happens to be faster than the Kaveri 35 watt part in single-threaded performance. Now, when you look at multi-threaded results, that changes. You have slower performance here. You know, the AMD part is faster. Bay Trail catches up a little bit. It's closer to the performance of the Core M than in the single-threaded results. And that kind of gives you an idea. Basically, what we're talking about is it's such a low TDP processor that in a single thread, when only one core is running, it'll use that 4.5 watt TDP. It'll burst up to those speeds of up to 2.6 gigahertz. It'll get that task done as quickly as it can.
It stays there for
And it can stay there for a little while.
yeah, for a little while.
Right?
Like not half an hour.
But when you're running both cores and 4 threads, right, you're using those cores, utilizing it more. I think what you're seeing is the TDP is pulling everything back down.
Yep.
Because the thermal design of the Yoga 2 is built for 15 watts. The one for Yoga 3 is built for 4.5 watts. So as a result, even though the processor and architecture probably could be faster,
yeah.
it is not. And that's I'm going to say that's on purpose, but it is expected. Right.
You don't think that there's any possibility of like nudging a little more out of it with firmware, maybe, or
maybe,
something?
But they're going to have Broadwell parts that are going to run at higher TDPs. They're going to have a 10 watt part or a 15 or 12 watt part or something right? That will target those slightly larger devices that want better performance.
Yeah.
So, you know, if you look at the benchmarks, they all kind of repeat that story, right? Where it's slower than the current generation parts. So, as I wrote in the conclusion, a lot of people would just kind of walk away and go, What a useless CPU.
Well, I mean, it's except for the fact that laptop is much thinner and
right. Well, here's where that comes into play, right? So we do our normal battery test, which is just the Wi-Fi usage test, and the system, the Yoga 3, based on the 5Y70, got about 5.25 hours and 4.86 hours for the Yoga 2. Now, don't focus so much on the specific time, but on the relative time there. So you're talking about you're getting 40 minutes more battery life out of this system, but that's not as impressive until you realize that the Yoga 3 Pro actually has a 22% smaller capacity battery in it.
Yeah.
It has a 44 watt hour battery instead of a 54 watt hour battery. And that shows the efficiency. If we look at calculated power consumption, this is not measured, this is calculated based on our performance test and battery capacities, that the Broadwell system is using about 3 watts less power all of the time.
Makes sense.
Than Haswell. And that turns out to be a lot, right?
Yeah.
Like
it
in
adds
terms
up
of
over time,
of what it is, right? So they were able to build a thinner, I think they said it was like 16 or 18% thinner, 16 or 18% lighter system with similar levels of performance with longer battery life. Now, similar levels of performance is interesting because it's a slower part. Like when you're browsing the web, when you are answering emails, when you have several tabs open, it's going to perform fine, right? It's going to perform like an Ultrabook would perform.
Yeah.
If you have 20 tabs open and you have some other applications running at the same time, maybe you've got Photoshop open and it's got several documents in it or something like that. And maybe you're just doing a little bit of photo editing or something like that. Maybe you're using a different application or something like that for that purpose.
Yeah, just bogging the system down more.
Right, watching a 1080p YouTube video, doing some of those things at the same time. You may actually feel that performance difference between the Core M and the Core i5 Haswell part.
Yeah. It's reasonable.
So it's not an invisible thing, right? It is close to the performance of Haswell, but it is not equal to the performance of Haswell. So it's an interesting kind of device that falls in between. For example, you were looking at one to maybe purchase, and I said, hey, look, if I were you, I would either wait for the higher end, higher wattage parts, because you tend to be more of a power user. You're doing multiple things, lots of things at the same time. For somebody that's just looking for a device to answer email, browse the internet, do some basic tasks, this is going to be a great device. This isn't a review of the Yoga 3, but of the processor itself. Now, me personally, what I would have liked to seen Lenovo do is keep the larger battery and give me the longer battery life. And in fact, as I say at the end, what I'm really looking forward to is like the ThinkPad style design
Yoga 3 ThinkPad
that has like
edition.
a 90 watt hour battery. And like the
Droid Max.
Like the one I'm using here, this is an 85 watt hour battery capacity. Right? I want this, but I want the efficiency of what the Core M gives so that I can literally not have to worry about
for several days.
Right? And that's the goal, right? Like, 'cause that should be the goal of this part. And I think you'll see other designs that use it in that fashion. So it's an interesting thing because it's such a low watt part. You can start to put it in tablets.
Yeah.
Right. You look at where Bay Trail is today. Bay Trail is like a 2.5 watt, 3 watt part. So you're very, very close to that. So what will companies like Asus or Lenovo or Acer do with kind of creating different formats?
It'll
in
be
that
an
line?
interesting CES.
Yeah, that's true.
There's going to be so many. I don't know what they're. I wonder what Intel's going to rename. It was convertibles, and then it was
2-in-1.
now it's 2-in-1s.
Yeah.
They haven't heard that term in a while, so it must be something new.
They're going to name it something different
come
now.
CES. So, Josh, any thoughts on Core M based on what this outlook looked like?
You know, it's a neat technology. It seems like that we're in a race to go to the lowest power instead of highest performance, which I think this illustrates it quite well. I mean, they increased efficiency. They didn't do anything for really overall performance over that 15-watt part, even though they had some. You kind of wonder what AMD's going to be doing up against this. They're against the wall because we talked about how 20 nanometer is just not effective for a lot of these bigger parts. There's just too much power and too much heat coming off of them because it's just too dense, and they didn't improve the power handling characteristics of the process on 20 nanometer planar.
Right.
So Intel's done some really interesting stuff, obviously. I mean, they're still process leader. This new generation of parts is really impressive in terms of the engineering, especially the low power stuff. Yeah, you don't have to apply nearly as much voltage to it, which is why you're seeing a 4.5 watt part that still performs the same as a 15 watt. I mean, it's just sometimes I think we want to be impressed a little too much, and sometimes we don't always take a really good look about what exactly they've done. So in this case, we're just getting smaller parts that is going to put pressure on the ARM ecosystem. We're going to see guys like NVIDIA, Qualcomm, Samsung. They're all kind of sweating because Intel is the 800-pound gorilla of the semiconductor industry who has the money to invest in advanced process technology that is the basis for a lot of these advances. x86 is not an efficient architecture. ARM does a little bit better. I mean, it's just a kind of RISC type low power that's been designed from the very beginning to do that. And x86 is, well, it's an interesting cobbled together piece of technology that just is not quite there. But Intel is leveraging their assets and their strengths to really put a lot of pressure on these low power mobile guys.
I'll be curious to see what they come up with. I'm sure we'll see a lot more devices at CES. But hey, we got Broadwell by the end of the year. They said they would do that. So something else we got in this week, Alan posted a review of, is the Phoenix Blade. Whoa! It's a PCI Express SSD from G.Skill. Yes.
Can you throw it at the wall behind you and stick it in there in the panel?
It's already stuck. It's just off.
Is it kind of like the Kroll blade?
Except it doesn't come back.
It just stays in the wall.
Just stays in the wall. We tried.
So what are we looking at here, Alan? This is a PCI Express SSD.
This is the simplest way to explain it.
Okay.
It is a Revo drive.
Okay.
Except with better heatsink design.
Okay, so
by Revo drive, I mean it is a chip.
Assume I didn't know what a Revo drive
Okay, so
was.
a Revo drive is a RAID of SandForce SATA SSDs on a PCI Express card.
How many SATA SSDs?
Well, it depends. And for a Revo drive, it depends. There's different versions, but in this case, it's 4.
So we have 4 SATA SSDs.
4 SATA SandForce controlled SSDs
over a PCI Express interface, essentially.
Yes, there is a form of a bridge chip in there that just kind of ties all those together and makes them appear as one device.
Using like a Sweet J Micron RAID controller or something?
No, they are not.
What are
they're using, let's see, OCZ's version is called VCA. This one is called, it's got a weird name. It's SBC, which is like something boost.
Okay. Is it a RAID controller? Is it just like a logic controller? What are we?
I mean, it's just a very low latency RAID controller. It's not a full-blown RAID controller where that has a cache and you can change modes on and make it RAID 5 or RAID 6 or any of that. All that's gone. It's the simplest possible way to just bridge that PCI bus, make it appear as a SCSI device, single SCSI device, but in reality it's talking to 4 SATA devices, and it's just translating those, those commands as they come across. The other important fact is that it actually also translates the command queuing across, right? Which is the other big deal. That's the thing
important for performance.
That's the thing that OCZ made a big splash about with the Revo drives when they first came out, because that was the first implementation that really did that. That did that scaling. So this is using different chip from, I'm guessing, a different manufacturer, but it accomplishes the same thing.
Now it's rated at max read speed of 2 gigabytes, max write speed of 2 gigabytes.
We saw close to that. We saw 1.8.
They talk about they're being pretty upfront. They're even telling you what benchmarks they're using, right?
Oh yeah.
For sequential read, sequential write, random read, random write.
I think the benchmarks
45,000 IOPS.
The benchmarks they used, I think, kind of showed much slower sequential speeds than the drive is actually capable of.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it just kind of caught me off as weird there when I looked at it. But the tests that we run are more kind of realistic file copies and file creations, things that are closer.
Here's what the inside looks like, by the way.
Yeah, there's totally
it's
like...
basically, this is the primary PCB, and then you've got a just like an interface here for a daughter card, daughter board.
It's still a cool thing to look at.
It is. It really is.
Yeah.
Except...
there was a little weird thing with the, that chip doesn't make a lot of heat, but the thermal paste just kind of wasn't doing a thing.
It also didn't make a lot of contact, so...
Yeah. The chip,
SBC208-2, whatever that means.
The chip package was kind of concave.
Now, we should point out, this is a 480 gig drive, and it's also the only capacity it's being offered in.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
All right, so real quick on performance then, what met your expectations and what did not?
So the sequentials met my expectations. Very fast sequentially.
Here we go.
Pretty much what you'd expect.
G-Skill Phoenix Blade 480 gig, 1.8 gigabytes.
Yeah, it's pretty much
reads there.
It's right up there. It actually beats the competing Revo drive of the same capacity, right? Of the same specs. So that looks good, right? Maybe they're doing something different with that SBC chip.
Sure.
Maybe it just works a little differently. Who knows, right? But what was not impressive was on the random performance.
Okay.
And that really wasn't the SBC chip's fault or even that device as a whole's fault. It was the SandForce controllers that were chosen.
So if we take a look at this graph here, this first iometer graph, the G-Skill Phoenix Blade is this blue line.
Yes. Okay. So we got a blue line.
So
and
the
then
blue line in this red line here, which I'm guessing are the Revo drive. Yep.
Yes, that's the Revo drive.
They're very close. They kind of mirror each other. One's a little bit faster at the end.
Yep.
But what's important to note is kind of what happens here at the beginning, I guess.
Yes, the QDEPs 1 through 4, maybe even up to 8.
See if I can make this bigger.
Yep, that's where that's where desktop users and even most power users are going to sit most of the time. Like their system is
1, 2, 4, 8.
Right.
Yeah.
Those are basically how many things you're asking the SSD to do at the same time.
Right.
Right. Or how many programs have individual accesses simultaneously going. That's what that QDEP is.
So what's important to note is that at 1, 2, 4, and 8, it's under this collection of lines, which include things like the Samsung 850 Pro, the Crucial M550, the ADATA SP610.
Yep.
Which are all
Silicon Motion Controller, Samsung controller. Yeah, all SATA-based.
SSDs.
Correct. And that's the big point here is that other newer generation SATA controllers have far exceeded the speed, or at least the reduced latency that you get compared to the original SandForce 6 gigabit controller, which is pretty much what that is.
Gotcha.
So, and it just really kind of loses there. So I would say that that's almost enough of a difference where, depending on how sensitive you are to these things, you might notice that difference. Like it might be perceptible.
Sure.
In response, right? Especially for things that are just one game launch or something like that, where the game is a single thread and it does a lot of little accesses.
Yeah.
A single SATA SSD is probably going to be able to blow through those faster than this drive could.
Okay.
So, yeah, it's kind of it's kind of a tough call.
It's incredibly impressive from a sequential standpoint, less impressive from a random standpoint.
Yeah, it's basically more like a dragster and not like a nimble kind of a streetcar.
Oh, we went back to the things again.
Sorry.
Analogies.
Car analogy.
Analogies.
Yep.
Let's talk about graphics cards now. NVIDIA is like the VW. Never mind.
Pricing wise, $700 for the 480 gig model. It's $1.46 a gig. That's less expensive than the Revo 350 at that same capacity.
Yep. So it's cheaper. So if you're after a drive like a Revo drive,
if you want a PCI Express SSD,
if you like that, you like the kind that you're okay with the IOPS not being as high on the low end, right? And you just been eyeing that Revo drive. Well, this is basically the same thing, except it performs a little bit better and it's cheaper.
Okay.
So there you have it. And it's even...
What we'd like to see ideally is this design with a different controller, a more modern controller.
Yeah, I would love to see what that SBC chip could do with any other modern
anything
controller.
Past the Sandforce, right? That has improved the IOPS at that low point.
Right. And then it would be much more akin to doing something like making a RAID under the Intel controller of multiple SATA SSDs, right? It would basically do that. But you'd have the advantage of it being on a PCI Express card that you just add in. You don't have to have multiple SATA devices.
That is the G.Skill Phoenix Blade 480 gigabytes. Also up this week. Posted just today in the massive headache of the site crashing and dying. Sebastian posted a review of the Fractal Design Core 1100 Micro ATX, not mini ITX, not full-size ATX, Micro ATX case. A fairly, I guess it's fair to say, kind of a standard case. It's doesn't have a whole lot of flashy design to it, but it's also got the price to kind of match up with it. We're talking like $39.
Yep.
At Newegg, and it has some fairly impressive specs. You've got 2 5.25 inch bays, 2 3.5 inch bays, or 3 2.5 inch. Wait, hold on. Or 3 bays, 2.5. Yeah, so you can do 2 or 3 in that direction. 4 expansion slots, up to 350 millimeter long graphics cards. You've got filtered fans in the front. There, large CPU coolers, fairly large, full-size ATX power supplies, up to 185 millimeters. If a typical length optical drive is mounted, I don't know of atypical length optical drives at this point. Like, who has really long optical drives now?
It's a changer.
There's that one with 5 lasers that Alan loves.
That's true,
but that was still a normal size.
Oh,
7 lasers. Get it
right.
right.
It weighs 8.4 pounds as well. So if your back hurts a lot and you got to move your case,
Josh is laughing because he knows what optical drive I'm talking about.
Yep.
It's an okay looking case. Like it looks like kind of your, steel computer case, right? You got USB 3 in the front, USB 2 on the front. I hope so.
Are the edges rolled?
I don't know. Let's see.
I cut you.
No, they look rolled here. You can see the edges there are rolled. I mean,
I would really expect it to be with Fractal.
Fractal does a really good job.
Doing
yeah. They have done a good job. You can see here the storage mounting mechanism
it's pretty
for
cool.
it. That's why you can have 3 SSDs or 2 hard drives on it.
Yeah.
And there's that's a mini ITX motherboard in there, but you get the idea. So I mean that's kind of like your typical system built in it. It's small, but it's not unreasonably small. Sebastian seemed to like a little bit. He was built a system using the that G3250 Anniversary Edition. Here's your temperatures above ambient. Here's your noise levels. That seems pretty low. 3.8. So for $40, it's not as exciting as he says here, but the overall quality, the included fan, it seems like it got a silver award. Well made, good level, fit finish, sufficient room for an easy build. Added value with included fan. No cutout behind motherboard tray, so if you got to change that cooler.
Yeah.
After the fact, that'll be a pain. No cable routing openings, so might be issues with power supply cable length. But it's a shorter case. It's a smaller case, so that maybe would be a problem. And then the hard drive bracket, although cool looking, can be inconvenient. So if you are on the lookout, which for I know many of you are, super low cost cases, this would be a great start for kind of a low cost system build with a $39 case that's also not going to cut Ken's finger off.
I don't know.
Like a fan.
Yeah, I could still stick it in a fan blade. They can't prevent that.
I've got that video card at home that took a chunk of Kent's finger. I can bring it back in.
Yeah, why do you have that?
We could throw it out.
Don't bring it back in. I don't want to see that.
Was it
thing.
a 290? What was
bring
it?
it back in.
79. It was 79.
It was
No,
No,
it was like a 550 Ti or something.
It was
like that.
It was like a
Was it red?
It's like a 580
It's
or
a fan
a
rail.
Well, it is
560.
now. Yep.
It was one of those.
It's missing one blade. It's clean cut off.
It
at the
was-
No,
base.
it's a 7970.
No, it's not.
No.
It was when Galaxy had that fan design when
Yep.
the fans came out.
Yeah.
Oh, it's that one. Yeah,
And I
have
spent-
broke
No,
a
Ken
fan
got
blade on
beat
a
up by a
7970
cheap video card.
too.
And their
Not an
supposed
expensive one.
the funny thing is their supposed replaceable fans. I spent a good week trying to get through to any kind of a person where I can order that replacement fan.
Well, don't do that.
Didn't happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't do that.
Oh well.
It's replaceable. I didn't
Galaxy.
say they would have
Yeah,
replacement.
it's replaceable in that you could remove it easily, and you might be able to put one in, but you can't get one to put in.
All right. We have quite a few news items, and we're going to probably have to go through the other ones really quickly. This one, I think, deserves a little bit more discussion. Recently, well, let's start
Yeah.
this way. This week, Ubisoft released Assassin's Creed Unity to tepid fanfare in the PC community for a couple of reasons, right? And one of the reasons is, one of the reasons people were really excited about it was because of how good it looked. For example, this screenshot is pretty awesome. Now, it's a screenshot, so you can't trust it 100%, but I will tell you that it's at least fairly representative
Yeah, we looked
of what
we
happens
looked at
in
it
the
last
game.
night. So
Especially if you're sitting still and not moving, you don't have to worry about aliasing or any kind of shimmering or anything like that
Yep.
in the game. It looks really, really good. Now, the problem that has occurred,
Is that PC users want their cake and eat it too?
they do, I think.
Yeah.
So the game runs at low frame rates, even with high-end hardware.
Pretty low
And
frame
here's what
rates.
we're talking about. So on our test bed, a Core i7 3960, it's a 6-core Sandy Bridge E part, 16 gigs of memory, and a single GeForce GTX 980 running at 1080p on the ultra-high preset, so the highest visual quality, but 1920 by 1080.
Yep.
We're seeing frame rates from 37 to 48 frames per second.
Pretty low for 1080p.
It is. It is. Using the low preset at the same resolution, where we only see we see it go up to about 65 to 85. So it goes
okay.
up,
Yeah.
but you're obviously losing a lot of image quality.
Yeah.
Benefits there. So, and then again, this isn't even getting into the idea that the fact that AMD is probably 15 to 20% slower than NVIDIA right now, and that it's a GameWorks title and all that other debate.
Right.
Not even really part of this discussion because
Because at this point, it's so dang slow.
right. Well, the accusations have been from a lot of people in the community that either Ubisoft did it on purpose, which actually makes no sense, or they did it kind of out of neglect. I wrote in the story, right,
Okay.
where they were like, we don't really care if the code's efficient. We're just going to make it look pretty."
Yeah.
Which also just doesn't kind of make sense, knowing that the goal of the company is to sell as many copies of the game as possible. Also note that this is the same company that we had that discussion with before, where that anonymous developer of the game wrote into the other podcast and said, "Hey, we actually can't get above 1600 by 900 on the consoles because of the visual quality stuff we're doing and the CPU bottlenecks and the GPU bottlenecks in the system. And we wanted to make a really good looking game, and we didn't want to sacrifice that for the sake of resolution or whatever." And at the time we talked about that as being, the consoles have hit a wall. Well, as it turns out, that is also affecting us on the PC gaming side. So I actually sent over some questions, which I would encourage you guys to go to the website if you are watching us live. We literally just published it right before the podcast went live, where I asked him a question.
Who's
to
him?
the point
Who are you
of
asking?
it is a developer at Ubisoft.
Oh, sweet.
It is like this is an official comment, right? So it's
Oh, okay.
It's all official statements. It's not anonymous. I just didn't feel the need to put his name out there and
Right.
whatever. I asked what in the game engine was causing these compute resources to be so high. Are there specific effects or design goals in the artists that require this horsepower to run at these speeds? And they basically were saying that it's a giant open world game, open world city built to scale. Paris requires significant details. The game happens in Paris, in case you didn't know that. There are tens of thousands of objects are visible on screen, casting and receiving shadows. Paris is incredibly detailed. For example, Notre Dame itself is millions of triangles. The entire game world has global illumination and local reflections. There are realistic high dynamic range lighting, and we temporarily stabilized anti-aliasing.
Okay.
Right. So there's some of the reasons why is the engine so hard on GPU hardware. But then I asked other questions like, was there a debate internally about downscaling those effects to allow for lower end system requirements?
Right.
And they said they talked about it a lot, but our position always came back to us ensuring that Assassin's Creed Unity is a next gen only game with breakthrough graphics. With this vision, we did not degrade the visual quality of the game. On PC, we have several options for low scaling, like disabling AA, decreasing resolution.
Sure.
And we have low options for texture quality, environment quality, and shadows. So they're basically taking a stance that we wanted the game to look a very specific way.
Yeah.
And we were not willing to compromise the look in order to make sure minimum and recommended system requirements.
I mean, since there is the option to turn that stuff down, I mean,
But-
it seems reasonable.
But again, turning them all the way down at 1080p
Only gives
on a
you, like-
980 was
yeah.
giving me 65 to 85 frames per
Yeah.
second.
You'd
So
think
there-
you would get more out of it.
there are going to be systems that are not going to be able to play the game.
Yeah, that's true.
Minimum requirements.
Like I'm on a 680. It probably wouldn't look that great.
No,
on
the
it.
recommended the recommended says 680. I forget what the minimum was.
I
No,
can
I think the
try it. I
minimum
can
was
try it at
680.
home.
Minimum was 680. Okay,
So I was
which
just
is a 770.
right before the
Yeah.
podcast. I was testing with the 770, and I ended up running it at 1600 by 900, which is what the consoles run at.
Yep.
And medium quality settings, and it was still a good-looking game. I couldn't really knock the visuals,
Right.
and I was getting about 50 to 60 frames per second pretty constantly. out
Okay.
of that.
So that's not bad.
So you're not necessarily running at every pixel that your monitor can possibly do, but if it
Yeah.
still looks like a good game in the end, I don't really think it matters a whole lot.
Yeah, like my 680 and my 30-inch, I'm not going to have that much luck
Right.
Yeah.
at the house.
I asked them if they were like, were they targeting future GPUs? Were they targeting multi-GPU? And
Yeah.
they said, no, we were targeting current generation hardware. And then I did ask one, I only got a little bit of time with them. Do you envision updates to the game or to future GPU drivers that would noticeably improve performance on current generation hardware?
Right.
And he says the development team is continuing to work on optimization post-launch through software updates. You'll hear more details shortly.
That sounded kind of PR-ish at the end there, but
Yeah, well, I mean, they're not going to say, yeah, we promise we're going to get you 20% more frames.
yeah.
But so
I mean, it's almost like Crisis, right? Like Crisis was always
Well, the
really
original,
hard
yeah.
on
Let's
stuff.
go back 6 years.
Crisis
When
3.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I had a system that was pretty high end at the time. Had dual 8800 GTXs in there. I was like, this is going to handle it no problem. I put it on ultra, and it was a slideshow at 15 to 17 frames per second.
Oh, was this the original Crisis?
the original
Yeah.
Crisis?
Yeah, I remember being really defeated with like a brand new water cooled setup that I'd set up and like specifically not fired up Crisis until I was done with that build, just because I was like, yeah, I'm gonna like overclock the crap out of all this stuff and get everything way overclocked and then
gonna
fire
roll
Crisis.
it.
I was so disappointed.
I'm curious, Josh. It will be hard to know specifically, but at that time, it was a long time ago. Do you remember what the reaction was?
Oh yeah,
people
everyone
were
remembers what the
pissed.
reaction was.
Yeah, people were pissed.
Will it run Crisis? It's still something people
Yeah.
say.
Yeah,
Right, but they don't say it. But they don't say it today in a negative.
That's because
Well.
a new generation of video cards came out after that actually started running it
pretty decently.
acceptably.
Yeah,
Sure.
Yeah.
Now there's argument to be had that, well, when by the time the whatever comes after 980 comes out and the 390X from AMD are out, I probably won't want to play Assassin's Creed Unity.
You mean
So
because
why do I
it's-
care?
Because it's old enough.
Because it's old,
Okay.
right? So why do I care if future GPUs can run it better?
Well, I mean,
That's a fair argument.
you know, when the next generation came out that Crisis played better at, people were still playing Crisis.
So,
Hey, let me two words for you, Ryan. Mm-hmm. 2 words. Steam sale.
Yeah.
okay,
Steam
that's true.
sale.
That's true. So
Hey, you never played Unity because it was $60? Yeah, I didn't buy it then.
And my PC
Oh,
couldn't
it's
run
on
it.
it's on sale
Yeah,
for
I didn't-
$12.
I didn't buy it then because
and
my
I've
PC
got a
couldn't
new
run it.
video card.
true.
Speaking of Steam,
Don't change the subject.
no, not this is specifically for this game.
Okay.
So you tried downloading this game on whatever the name of the Ubisoft little server thing is.
You play.
How fast was that download?
Well, the first time I downloaded it was like 50 megs per second. This is totally unrelated to what we're talking about. What are you doing?
It's the game. We're talking about
It's
the
not
game.
the game. That's Uplay versus Steam.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
But anyway, I mean, Steam downloaded twice as fast at least, even at the peak. I
Yeah.
downloaded Steam at 102 megabytes per second. We have a little bit of an advantage here.
Yeah, we do.
I think most people wouldn't be bottlenecked by a 5
Right.
megabyte per second internet connection. So, I did use the analogy here. Basically, I wrote a short little editorial, kind of like questioning why people were getting mad about this.
Yeah.
I understand it, but I don't understand the
Why there's that much rage?
viral, not viral, the vile hate.
Virulent.
Thank you,
Or
hatred
virulent,
towards
yeah.
it, right?
It might just
Because
be people.
when Crisis 3 launched last March, I looked this up. Kotaku had a story where 1920 by 1200 with the highest end card at the time was a GTX 680. At high settings, you got 50 frames per second, and at very high settings, you got 37 frames per second.
Yeah.
It's a very similar kind of result, right? And that's why we still use Crysis 3 as a benchmark today. And it's still like the toughest game on our graphics cards today.
Yeah.
Maybe this will be, but Crysis 3
This will be the new one.
Can I ask you a quick question,
You
Ryan?
may. Yes.
Did you see any show-stopping visual artifacts or glitches? I mean, we've seen the things about, the people have just the eyeballs and
Scary
the mouth. Yeah. Did you see anything like that?
No, I didn't. I didn't see. So all I have played it on thus far is a GTX 980 and a GTX 770 we were playing it on today, and we didn't see any of that. Now, obviously, that's happening to people. I understand that, and that's creepy and disappointing at the same time, because those caricatures are awful, just weird looking. But no, I didn't see it. No.
Yeah, and so I think part of it is people love to grasp on one. Ubisoft has a bad reputation because they said things like, a more cinematic experience. Mm-hmm. You've got Uplay, which, albeit it's one of the thinner clients, but say you buy something on Steam, you then have to load up Uplay and play it through Uplay. If you just load up Uplay and try to play your game, it doesn't show up. You have to start Steam and then Uplay. I mean,
Sure.
there's a lot of bad karma going against Ubisoft, and they're not handling it very well. And so we're getting so much backlash on this what is essentially a cutting edge game. If you look at the screenshots,
It's awesome.
if you look at the play,
really is.
the amount of art assets and the man hours that is spent to create these art assets, to get these high resolution textures in there, to get this essentially a living, breathing world that you can wander around in and just wander around and look at crap.
It's really cool. I mean, most of my game stream yesterday was me like running around the city, climbing up things, looking, getting down, climbing up things, and looking.
Absolutely. And so, I mean, they are really, really, really cutting edge. Mm-hmm. And I don't know why people, I mean, they just want to see the worst in it instead of just saying, you know what?
Well,
don't like what Ubisoft does. I don't like some of their philosophies, but let's see this work that they did.
I mean, I understand if you're a gamer that has a GTX 760 or something and you wanted to play this game and you almost can't or whatever, but and I understand that there's a happy medium that we could find, but people that complain about, it's just this unoptimized piece of crap and they don't know, like, first of all, you have no idea if it's an optimized game. You have no idea because you're not a programmer. 99.9% of the people watching this, you're not a programmer. You don't know shit about game development.
Yeah.
And even if you are, you don't know their code base.
That's true, right? I don't think Ubisoft didn't want to release a game on consoles that reviewers slammed for frame rate issues, right? They don't want to have this debate about frame rates on the PC, right? But they made a decision about visual style that they didn't want to compromise on.
I think I think it was some of their statements about that stuff that turned on the hate. And then as soon as something like
what?
The whole like games look weird at 60 FPS and blah blah blah.
Yeah, okay, so they were
right?
trying to make excuses for
yes.
it.
So when you start trying to do that, then you get people that are just kind of turning on them, and then they're just waiting for the next thing to come out, the next slightly negative thing. So they latch on it, and then they just make a big deal.
The paragraph I'll read here of this editorial is that PC gamers seem to have like a double standard for this stuff, right? On one hand, we hate it when PC ports or games that are developed in with consoles in mind don't take advantage of PC hardware.
Yep.
Like all of the Call of Duty games up until this most recent one on any generation, like on any high-end hardware to run at like 150, 200 frames per second.
Yeah.
Clearly there's things the developer could do to make the game look better or be cooler and take advantage of that extra horsepower. Now, Unity and Crysis 3 are the opposite. They really, really tax current CPU and GPU hardware, paving the way forward for future GPUs. If you're NVIDIA or AMD, you should want this. Just like those GPU guys wanted 4K monitors to make a reason for people to buy 980s, to make a reason for people to buy 290Xs. You should want this if you're AMD. So, I don't know. Go read that editorial. I just posted it up. I'm expecting a ton of comments on it.
There may be one or two already.
There may be.
Yeah,
good,
they're probably
good. I'm kind of curious. Like, I just want to know. I don't know. Why? Why are you so mad all the time? Why did the
Someone is wrong on the
Someone is
internet.
wrong on the
Why are
internet.
you internet people negative?
All right, let's move on from this. Jeremy, Far Cry 4 comes out next week. Is this going to be a repeat of the same thing?
It really doesn't sound like it.
Oh, okay, good.
I mean, the specs that they're offering, I mean, the only real questionable one, or at least impressive one, is you need a 64-bit OS. You don't have a 64-bit OS, you ain't going to be playing it. But for the minimum, they want an Intel i5 750 or Phenom 2 X4 955, neither of which are new or powerful pieces of hardware. 4 gigs of memory, again, a basic sort of any machine has it. And for GPU, they're talking about either the 5850 or a GTX 460.
These are minimums. Okay.
This is the minimum.
Right.
To bump up to max, they do suggest like a 680 or an R9 290X. But from what we've been sort of seeing, it's not going to be the same way that Assassin's Creed is. On the other hand, they're not rendering the Cathedral of Notre Dame with millions of triangles.
Hey, but look at all those poppies in the field there.
Can we go back to that?
What's that?
They recommend a 680 or an R9 290X. There's a big difference in compute power there.
Just a wee bit, but again, that's because AMD is sort of playing behind the game with this one, because this is very much an NVIDIA title,
Yeah,
or at least an NVIDIA optimized title.
I'm curious, like, what those, if, like, for example, that is with HBAO Plus enabled or PCSS enabled,
Yeah.
like some of those NVIDIA kind of
Well, for the
specific
recommended,
features. You can turn them all off, of course.
Yeah.
But, you know, interesting. So that's this coming Tuesday, November 18th for Far Cry 4.
Not long now.
Man, what a busy November. All right, what do we got up next? Intel SSD updates. Intel refreshes the SSD DC S3500 series to include larger capacities.
Yep. So they added a 1.2 and a 1.6 terabyte model.
How many did we get?
How many we didn't get any?
That is bullcrap.
Just a refresh.
That is bullcrap.
They actually perform, even on paper, they perform a little bit worse than the lower capacity models.
Well, I can see why.
Well, just because you're trying to juggle much more flash and you have a larger database to keep up and stuff like that, because those are enterprise optimized drives. They keep a different type of a database going than what you would see in just a regular consumer drive.
Yep.
So, they will go more slow and steady all the time, as opposed to a consumer drive that'll just kind of do everything it can as fast as it can until it fragments and then it starts choking.
Okay.
So slightly lower performance there, and they also introduced some M.2
Yep.
form factor models of the same. Right?
For all those servers with M.2 slots.
That's kind of what they're going for.
Put them in my notebook.
I mean, I guess if Intel wants it, it'll happen.
I was going to say, if Intel wants to put M.2 in servers, they'll just make servers with M.2.
There's that,
now
and
they
then
have a new market.
And then apparently embedded systems are starting to move to this a lot. That's apparently a thing, although we don't really test embedded systems here, so we don't, we don't see it ourselves. But it's enough of a thing where there was, but there have been a couple of launches of enterprise-ish or, that sort of thing in M.2 form factor lately. So yeah, it's about to be a thing.
Now, not to be confused with the S3500, is the P3500, which is
Correct.
an SSD that we have known about forever.
Yeah, since they launched the P3700,
When was
which
that?
was a while ago.
Let me click this link here and tell you. June 24th. Oh, that was only in June? Oh, okay.
That was only in June, but we knew about it a little before then too, right? Because we were pre-briefed and stuff.
Yeah, but
we've been
it's
talking about it for a while.
But the world didn't know about it.
Yeah. But it's been out for like half a year, right?
So what is the P3500 supposed to be? Like the low-cost version, right?
It is supposed to be the lowest end enterprise PCIe NVMe SSD from them, right? And they didn't launch a P3500 initially. Like you couldn't even buy it,
You still can't buy it.
and you still can't. But you're about to be able to, apparently, because we saw the SKUs start showing up on some retailers.
Now, people are interested in this because this is kind of the lowest cost entry into the NVMe PCIe SSDs currently.
Yeah.
So, like, if you want to buy one of these as a consumer because you just want super high-end shit, then this would be it.
Yeah, and their target, even when they announced the P3700s and we did that initial article, their target price for the P3500s was supposed to be $1.50 a gig. And that's almost exactly what we found them listed for.
So these are like unofficial listings, or where we assume they're leaked listings of some kind, because
They're
Intel
like-
has not launched this part yet.
It's the same kind of thing that happened with the 850 Evo last week,
Yep.
right?
Okay.
Where we saw it show up on like 3-4 different sites.
All right.
Same kind of thing happened here.
So
same kind of sites.
A couple of sites are listing the 400 gig part for like $611 or $629.
Yeah. It's a little over $1.53
per
a gig. Yeah.
I want 30 cents.
Well, you're not going to get it in these. So
It worked last time, didn't
So
it?
here's the thing.
30 cents.
like there has been a rumored 750 or something that's supposed to be coming, right? People have been talking about that in various places on the internet. Intel hasn't officially told us yet, so would be happy if they would. But other people seem to have figured it out or something. But we don't know what's going to be in that yet.
Right.
In this, we do know it's going to be the same kind of controller. It's the P3700, just lower grade flash, binned a little bit, for not as much endurance compared to the P3700. The specs might be a little bit lower than the P3700, but it's most likely going to have that same 18-channel flash controller in it.
Right.
And it's still going to be NVMe. So it's going to be really freaking fast compared to anything SATA, basically.
So it's going to be a panty destroyer.
I guess. Yeah, it has some
It's
sharp.
going to destroy mine.
It has some sharp
Yeah.
edges. I mean, you can
Yeah.
cut them up pretty good with it, I guess. I don't know.
Just podcast turned dark all of a sudden.
Yeah. No, so it should be a really good product. I really hope that. First of all, there's this for actually showing up for what seems to be $1.50 a gig. That only tells us good things for any potential PCIe consumer version from them.
You would assume the consumer version would be less than this.
Yeah, can you imagine if that
Unless-
came out for like less than $1 a
Well,
gig?
unless like they used a higher end controller, a faster controller in the consumer version.
They made it a P3600 instead of a P3500.
Maybe, but I don't think they're going to target consumer for $2 a gig when they have an enterprise part for $1.50 a gig. That's not Intel.
Intel likes money.
What's the price difference between an S3700 and a 730?
A 730 is less than $1 a gig.
And what's an S3700?
An S3700?
Like the
It's like
equivalent drive, right?
It's like $100.
no, it's more expensive.
Yeah,
than
exactly.
the 730.
That's what we're saying.
No, but what I'm saying is that the consumer version of this would be cheaper than the enterprise version of this. Same pattern.
Yeah, but whatever. It's fine.
Yeah, I don't know. I think they're still gonna.
How about 100?
I think that once this comes out, they're not going to worry so much about the 730. Like, if that's what you're worried about, is them kind of eating into the 730. I don't think they care about eating into the 730 sales with
Which is a
something like
SATA
this,
SSD.
which is a SATA SSD. I don't think
everybody.
they care about that in the least. Because once a good consumer version of this comes out, they're just going to start pushing that big time. That's my guess.
That's our Intel SSD updates for the week. Now, back to Jeremy to discuss another case. Well, this is a news story. Thermaltake Core V41. This is a liquid cooling friendly case. What makes a case liquid cooling friendly? would you say?
Right off the bat, looking at that, you can see that the feet that it uses are pretty high. So you could actually mount a cooler in the bottom if you so desired, and it would be useful because it wouldn't just be blowing directly at the floor and nothing would be moving.
Or sucking up nothing from the floor. Yeah, gotcha.
So if you scroll down a little bit, you can see that what they've set it up for is with a couple of removable drive cages, you can fit a 360 millimeter radiator in the front and one in the top, and stick one of the 120 millimeter all-in-one rads for a CPU cooler out the back at the same time. It has the space to be able to do that. It's also a bit of a modder's wet dream because, as you've seen lately, some of the higher-end water cooling systems are getting pretty bloody impressive. And this is going to be coming in well under $100 because they've already got the Core V51 on sale, and it's just about $110. So this is definitely going to be a little bit less expensive.
If I buy that for $100, you think it will come with all this stuff inside?
Of course it will. And a PCIe SSD.
Well, sure.
Yeah, sweet.
Yeah. But it just gives you a lot of room to work with, and it's wide open. There's nothing obstructing your view. So if you're like Maureen, you'll put together insanely
I do like
detailed
that.
and beautiful systems.
This shot shows that well. Like, there's no hard drive cage in the way by default, right? All the hard drives are on the
And
back.
a lot of the SSDs are hidden in the back.
Yeah, that's pretty cool looking.
Yeah, like it looks like it's
That's
a gorgeous
tight.
case.
It's so tight.
It's tight.
Yeah, but will
Like a
it fit
what?
that Gigabyte 980 water cooling thing?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sure. Why not? I don't know.
Oh, if you duct tape it to the top.
Does that look like a
I
cup
don't think
holder
that
to you?
radiator is bigger than 360 mil, is it?
Show that thing, Rain.
I didn't. I just closed it.
Oh, sorry. Let it go.
Oh, AWOD.
How
Oh,
could you?
I did. That's pretty cool for $100. Probably $100.
Yeah.
Nifty.
And it means if you tear it apart to mod it and you break it, well, you can just buy another one, and it's not a $300 Lian Li case that you just destroyed.
Right.
I know that feeling.
A couple of ending gaming news bits. BlizzCon happened, and at it they announced Overwatch, a new IP from Blizzard.
Oh, was that video we watched the other day with all the
Yeah.
characters and stuff in it? Looked pretty cool.
It's not Lost Vikings based.
Nope. It's not
I'm
Warcraft.
out.
It's not Warcraft.
I'm out.
It's not StarCraft. It is a first-person shooter of the visual animation style of like Pixar
Yep.
and the kind of class-based stuff of Team Fortress
Yep.
And the silliness of Borderlands.
and the character count of like Dota.
Yeah.
Right. So like mash all that together and you get Overwatch.
Did we get an actual character count? I know we were
Yeah, I
watching
think
the-
there was like 40, right?
They just ripped through all these different intros for all
Yeah,
these
there's a
characters in
ton of
that
them.
video.
It looks cool though. Like it looks neat.
Yeah.
From what gameplay they showed, like the locomotion mechanics, if you will, seemed pretty cool. Different characters had different ways to get around,
Like teleporting and
yeah,
like,
flying, teleporting, grappling hooks, stuff like that. It seemed pretty neat. Any thoughts on this, Josh or Jeremy? Anybody look at it? No. Did you watch the videos, Jeremy?
I have.
Oh, I did watch it. That was why I was thinking it was Team Border Fortress Lands. Because it was just sort of a mashup of that, and I'm not that familiar with Dota apart from knowing that, yeah, there's 1,000,000,001 characters you can play, each of which with very different mechanics. I mean, when you're playing Team Fortress 2, you've got a slightly different gun, maybe one or two unique things, but it's not a completely different way of playing. With this, you're playing a magician, you're playing an engineer, you're playing a guy with a giant hammer. Obviously, it's going to be very different to
You
play.
can play a giant gorilla as
That,
well.
what was that?
Yes,
that
or a
robot
giant
that turns
gorilla.
the robot that turns into a sentry gun.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. Like,
that was pretty awesome.
It's essentially a StarCraft Terran tank
Yeah.
that
Yeah, more or less.
goes into
Yeah.
tank mode, and
It was like a transformer that's a turret.
yeah.
Yeah, basically.
Looks like the multiplayer beta is coming out. Got to wait till 2015 for that. No idea when the official release will be, but I'm sure it'll just be in beta and free forever.
I hope it.
until
I
it's
would.
released,
I would hope it
whatever.
comes out like early-ish 2015 because there as much content as there was in that video of gameplay content. Like, I don't know.
Well,
it
it's not like
seemed
they're busy
pretty
working
good.
on Half-Life 3 or anything, so
Yeah, they're
they can
obviously
spend
not.
all the time on
You know,
this.
I remember back in 1996, I was playing Diablo, and on the Diablo disc was this video that showed the full, kind of little preview of StarCraft, and I promised myself, it looks like they're so close to releasing that. I'm not going to buy another game until StarCraft comes out.
How'd that work out for you?
Yeah, how
It
long
didn't work out real well. Blizzard, you made me a liar.
Yeah.
Not really a
I
liar, just like,
I broke my word. I broke the promise.
how could you?
Yeah.
Also from BlizzCon, StarCraft 2 Legacy of the Void announced.
What is that?
It is a StarCraft expansion.
Oh, okay.
StarCraft 2 expansion, I guess. I haven't really been following StarCraft 2 stuff a bunch, but this is after was Wings of Liberty the first one?
Yes, and
Yeah.
then Heart of the Swarm.
Okay, and then this is the
This is
third
the
and last.
Protoss one. Then,
Yeah,
I guess.
third is the Protoss.
Clearly,
So you
based
can buy
on
it
that.
standalone, presumably at a higher price, or if you already own the previous two, they're suggesting it's going to be like an expansion. So in theory, if you bought our first two, well, this one's going to be a little bit cheaper.
How could you not own one of the first two if you're interested in this game?
That's a good point.
It's a very good question.
It's
and
yeah.
apparently they totally redid the multiplayer.
Oh, really?
I don't honestly play very much of the StarCraft multiplayer, but they've rebalanced a lot of it. They've changed the way that some of the Terran and Zerg stuff works.
I hate it.
To make it different, so it's not just a Zerg rush in a very quiet first half of the game where everyone's building up
OP.
and then someone explodes.
Nerfed.
They're thinking it'll change.
That's the only terms I know. So that was BlizzCon. Oh, and Metallica played.
Really?
Metallica played at the end of BlizzCon.
They trying to be U2?
No, U2 would never play BlizzCon. Yes, they would.
Yeah.
They'd play.
But you do get a free
They play
album when you
anybody.
buy Heartless. Or
It will come. It will. They will install it to your computer
Yeah.
automatically.
The
when you install
soundtrack. The
StarCraft
soundtrack
2.
will auto insert itself.
Legacy of
The
the Void.
Metallica.
That'd be cool if
played
actually that
games.
was like the soundtrack to the game.
Actually,
I'd be okay with that. I'd be okay with that.
that should be a thing.
All right, let's get to our picks of the week here, guys. I am picking a Pebble Steel metal watch band
Yeah.
for a Moto 360.
Not surprising given how much I had to hammer away at it the other day.
So this is the Moto 360,
to get the links out
but
of
it doesn't have the leather band on it anymore. Now I know they did just announce versions of the Moto 360 with metal bands.
Oh, okay.
like Metallica?
Yes, with metal bands. These are light metal, not heavy metal, so
Okay.
there's a little bit more.
Yeah, that's true.
But I tried to see like when the accessory versions of these were going to be available, and I couldn't find anything out. And I thought, I'll just buy this Pebble one. It's only $20. It's out of stock on Amazon for the matte black
Probably because everybody bought it,
finish,
including you.
No, I bought mine at Best Buy
Oh.
for $19. But then they also have the brushed stainless version, depending on which color the Moto 360. you
Oh, no,
actually
the
get.
black really matches the watch well.
No, it does, and I just like the way that feels way better than the leather band.
Yeah.
And I wear it when I exercise and stuff because
Sweat on leather is not a good thing.
Sweat on it was not a good experience.
Right,
with
Josh?
that, so. You hid those off camera. It's totally fine.
Yeah.
So that's my pick. It is a watch band for a Pebble,
Yeah.
but
It works.
It doesn't matter. It works.
the same.
Standard watch bands for all.
Yeah, it fits. It fits. All right, Jeremy, what do you got for me?
Hey, free stuff is always good, right? So if you don't have a copy of The Witcher 2 Enhanced Edition, you haven't bought The Gamers, the movie that was put together about gamers, and you don't have Mountain Blade, then head over to Good Old Games and you can get Mountain Blade for free right away.
Mm-hmm.
If you hang around for 7 days and click on a silly little stamp thing, you can eventually pick up Witcher's 2 Enhanced Edition and the Gamer's Director's Cut. Again, absolutely free.
Wait,
And
what?
if you've
I
already
gotta
got a
click on
copy,
what?
well, Good Old Games is really good at doing gifts. So
What do you got to
Hey,
do here?
What do I got to click? I
I got
gotta
my
visit.
friend Metro
Go to-
2033 the other day. It was
click
awesome.
one of the links.
You gotta
the
visit.
2033.
Oh, you gotta come back and basically click on some stuff. They want you to
That's
visit
The Witcher
site.
and the movie. Mountain Blade is just free right now.
I see.
You have to visit daily and collect stamps.
Yeah. And if you want the full Mountain Blade with the all of the extra stuff, it's $10.
All right. So I'm on
So,
their front
hey.
page.
Free is good. Cheap
Alan
is
will
good.
never play this ever in his entire
Nope.
life, but it's free. So now
But
he
it's
wants
free.
to click
I'm going to do it.
whatever
Yep.
stamp
Gonna click.
he needs to click.
I don't see
Click
it.
like the wind.
I don't see a stamp. Whatever.
No, that's for only for The Witcher that you need the stamp,
Yeah.
All right,
which are
Josh,
unfortunately not in
Me.
tramp variety.
you're up next.
Okay, for like the past 2 months, I've been working a lot and really hard at my
Sure.
regular job.
Sure.
Hence, I haven't had a huge amount of articles out. Productivity, bad. But I've done better lately. I've got one in the system. You haven't even published it yet.
Oh my god.
Ryan.
Anyway, please tell me what the hell your pick is.
Anyway, so yeah, the last 2 months we've been working on this whole email migration to Exchange. Love it or hate it, it's where the board wanted to go, and
To Exchange
since
from
they
what?
sign my paycheck, I do what they want, and so we use this little application called Aid for Mail. And we took all of our old Thunderbird stuff and IMAP and POP3.
Oh, God.
And we got it into Exchange.
tell me more.
OST. It's inexpensive per seat. It's like $20. It's not bad.
That's not bad
But
at all.
it saves you many, many hours of pulling out hair that you do not have.
Well, look how fun
It
that
is.
looks.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. You can do all kinds of fun stuff with
Looks
it.
amazing.
All kinds.
Oh, and spoiler alert, Josh, next year you're migrating to the cloud. You're going to be doing an O365
no, we're not,
migration.
because we have a CFO who is incredibly paranoid.
Oh.
It's not going to happen.
Jeremy's your CFO.
Jeremy is a
I hope
mild
this is
mannered
something that
individual.
would suck ever.
I don't think we
ever
want
use.
Jeremy as a CFO.
No. So there you go.
All right,
Nice.
Alan,
It works. Trouble free.
you're
Yeah.
last.
All right, so I've been toying around with this piece of software off and on. It's called DxO Optics. There's a version 10 just came out.
Okay.
Basically, it will take a raw photo, or it'll do JPEGs too, but that's kind of defeating the purpose. Like if you shoot in JPEG and then you're going to edit it for purposes of like noise reduction and stuff, that's bad, right? So you have some picture you took, you have the raw, you took it at a really high ISO. Obviously, there's like some kind of grain there, noise, whatever going on. This thing has some kind of special snazzy algorithm that will take on the order of several minutes on to crunching away on a photo on a several core system. But it gets you like another stop or two worth of noise reduction. Basically, the equivalent of a stop or two worth of like cranking up the ISO further. So I've used it to get basically get some pictures back that I didn't think were recoverable or usable because they were just too noisy.
I know what this one is trying to demo.
And it does some other effects too. I'm not sure what they're
Haze.
showing.
Well, look
there.
at how nice that is.
But the pictures on that site, like the little, if you go to the site and just check it out and look at the before and after like noise reduction stuff, it's not overblown what they're doing on the site. Like you can actually achieve that with just using it on your own photos, surprisingly. So yeah, pretty cool. There's a free trial thing that lets you'll like register with your email or something, and it'll unlock all of the features.
Is that
for, like,
Lindsay
30 days.
Lohan?
Somehow I doubt it.
Yeah, so you could basically use like the full blown version of the thing for 30 days if you want.
Look at how soft I make my lens.
And then depending on how miserly you are, if you really wanted to, you could probably just process all of your photos within the 30 days and then just be done with it.
All
But
of the photos you will ever take.
all
you
the
can
photos you will
process
ever
within
take.
30
Well, you could knock out a good chunk of them.
You've met me in real life, haven't you, Alan?
Yeah, see, there you go. You'll take care of it.
No.
Oh, so the other
Get that glare off my forehead.
Is
finally.
this real life?
yes. So the other real cool stuff that software does outside of that noise reduction thing is those guys make. First of all, those are the guys that do that like DxO Mark thing. They like rate different camera lenses and different camera bodies and stuff like that. They have a thing, right?
It's a big deal.
But in the process of doing that, they also make profiles for all of the lenses they test and all of the camera bodies they test. And the software can see what photos you've taken, pull the metadata out, and say, hey, you want us to download the profiles for these camera bodies, these lenses that you have, right? And then once it does that, it auto-applies correction for all the lens distortion, all the other stuff, purple fringing, any of that kind of stuff. It just has built-in like just profiles based on that hardware, those combinations of hardware, and it works almost to like a magical degree. It's just like you could, once you just kind of understand how the workflow works to get through this thing, you can
Bad.
basically just put it in full
Good.
auto and just
Bad.
batch process like thousands of pictures with it, and it'll
Damn,
just
I
autocorrect
bet
everything.
the guys that ran Hubble wish that this existed back then.
Yeah, see, this would have worked if they made a Hubble, telescope profile. Yeah, would have been great. But yeah, I mean, it is pretty cool.
Do you have to have a Mac to run it?
That's not a
No,
real
they make
computer.
PC and Mac
I
versions,
don't know. I don't know what Macs are.
so it will work on a Mac.
How much is it again?
It depends on what parts of it you want and what levels of like complexity you want. But there's like
$189.
that's a package deal. That's all three different products. Like you don't even have to get that.
I love photo editing software. I should buy all of it.
Well, I mean,
Just in
don't know.
general. Whatever, I got Photoshop.
yeah.
All
Seems
right,
cool. Might be worth a try.
DxO.
Yep.
All right, that is going to wrap up the show for us this week. We'll be back next Wednesday, pcper.com/podcast. URL, find the back episodes, find the RSS files for the MP3 files, find our YouTube videos. If you want to go to YouTube videos directly, you can go to youtube.com/pcper. You can go to pcper.com/live when we record the shows. And again, pcper.com/subscribe to sign up for that mailing list so you can be notified when we're going live and we do all those live streams with the cool prizes and stuff as well. So with that, we will finish up today's live stream and podcast. We'll talk to you guys next week. See ya. I'm Ryan Schraub.
Jeremy Hellstrom.
Josh Walrath.
And I'm Alan Malventano.